We're going to, for those of you who are standing in the back, as soon as we finish the intro, we'll get you a couple chairs from the lobby.
Yeah.
So it's no fun to stand for an hour and a half. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Welcome to Let's Talk Agriculture. On behalf of the founder and creator of Let's Talk Vero and Vero Minute, I'd like to introduce you to Irina Wolfley and her son, Jonathan Douglas. Irina's right there. And Jonathan is sitting right there. And so thank you so much for putting this program together, Irina, for us tonight. We really appreciate it. My name is Belle O'Hare, and I will be a moderator tonight and facilitate hopefully a reasonably good conversation regarding agriculture. And I'll introduce our panel in just a couple of minutes. I would also like to give a shout out to those that have been kind enough to sponsor Let's Talk Vero. So I'd like to acknowledge Morgan Reynolds with Beyond the Trend. I believe I know she's here tonight. I saw her earlier. So thank you, Morgan. Austin Dingwall with Dingwall Architecture. And Chris Cronin, who's upstairs. He films and videotapes everything. Ed Shanapy, who owns the Boulevards and Padel Club. Christine Hughes, who is with Dale Sorensen. And last but certainly not least, Joey and Penny, seafood. So we thank them obviously very much. And I'd like for you to meet Oscar Sales. Oscar is the director of marketing of Riverside Theater. And we had just He's only been here 20 years. Okay. So we had talked about this earlier. You are sitting in the largest nonprofit producing theater in the state of Florida, which is awesome. Right? So the theater is 52 years old, which is extraordinary that it's still kicking. And it's going full speed ahead for 100 years in Vero Beach. And so lots of big things are happening, I know, with the theater. And also Oscar mentioned that for a small town theater, this is the largest theater in the United States for a small town. Because ordinarily, a theater of this size would need a population of 2 million to support itself. And we only have 170,000 here in Vero Beach. So it's an extraordinary feat, right, to be around for 52 years. Absolutely. And Oscar is nice enough to raffle off a couple of tickets for the next show coming up, A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder. Is there anything else you should know about this?
First of all, thank you, Verabel, so much, and Irina and Jonathan for putting this together, for moderating. You're an incredible moderator.
I'm paid to say that.
Yes. So thank you so much for all your efforts, and it's thrilling to see this room overflowing with you all. But yes, you mentioned our next show in January is called A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder. There's information in front of you or on your seats. For anyone who's watched Downton Abbey and wondered what it would be like to have servants at your beck and call to give you everything you need, to dress you, to bathe you maybe, although we might get there soon. But anyway, the premise of the show is that an ordinary working young man finds out that he is heir to a noble title. The only problem is that there are 8 people in front of him in line to get that noble title. And unfortunately for them, they all die. It's an incredibly wonderful musical comedy. It won the Tony Award for the best musical, which is the pinnacle of musical on Broadway. And we're thrilled that you all have a chance to see this great, great show. And for those who don't win tonight, you can still come and see it. The dates are right on there. So shall we have our raffle offering?
Yeah.
We have two raffles, correct?
Yeah.
One for an incredible Shat Groves Market Florida orange juice, 100%. So you must be here. So I'll ask Vanna to pull a name.
Then we're ready to go.
Vanna White. That's big ways today.
Mr. Canarelli,
Peter.
Peter Canarelli.
No. Someone else gets a chance.
He did. All right. How about Carolyn McAvoy?
She couldn't come. Wow. Boy, odds are getting better.
We only have 120. Okay, here we go. How about Brandon Shearer? There you go. Oscar will give you your ticket. And then for the shoes,
Congratulations.
is Cynthia Collender here?
That's the voucher.
We're waiting.
Let me know when you want to come.
She's right there.
It's right there. All
I'm
right.
gonna give her your orange juice. She's coming. And if not, we'll raffle it off again. Anyway.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Maribel, for allowing me to share.
Thank you, Oscar. So obviously, we're talking about agriculture, and I thought this might be fun. Back in the day, I pulled here we go. Back in the day, I pulled black and whites from the historical section of the library, and I have found this man right here. Why a Vera grower smiles. And he was one of the first growers in Indian River County. And my kids were young back in the day when I pulled this. And my youngest said, "Mom, he's not smiling." So anyway.
Who was it?
This, okay, let me go back to the microphone.
It says this is one of the best orange yields in this section of J.J. Roberts, who sold his crop from an 8-acre grove for $2 per box on the trees. The yield will reach 4,000 to 5,000. And apparently he came from Davenport, Iowa. Any relatives to this good-looking guy? Okay. All right. So we're going to try to pull together lots of facts about agriculture. I mean, it's a big topic: land, food, farming, agritourism, and of course, growth in Indian River County. For those of you that may have read the most recent article about agriculture here was in TCPOM. And it talked about how many thousands of acres might be lost along the Treasure Coast by 2040, which sounds maybe far away, but it's only 15 years. And so we thought we would want to unpack, with the help of our panelists, what crops they think can still flourish, what implications maybe artificial intelligence is going to have on local farming. What are some of the biggest opportunities and barriers for younger and newer operators, i.e. land costs, capital costs, etc.? And so the TCPOM article, real quick, said that it estimates that right now we have about 167,000 acres of farmland, and we have about 492 farms right now. I had a hard time visualizing how much 167,000 acres is. So I converted it to football fields. It's 126,000 football fields. For some reason, I can visualize that better than acreage. So that's how much right now we have in farmland, 126,000 football fields. And in aggregate, the sales were about $124 million. And the most current numbers are through the year end of 2022. So now, subsequently, another article was issued by American Farmlands Trusts, and the topic was Farms Under Threat 2040. And so they estimated, depending upon whether the county chooses density versus sprawl, they figured out ballpark how many more additional acres of farmland would go away in the next 15 years. And in football fields, they estimated between 3,500 football fields, which is 4,700 acres, or as much as 4,900 football fields, which is about 6,500 acres. And so those are kind of the most recent statistics about where we are here locally with our farmland. So audience participation. I see a lot of familiar faces and I see a lot of new faces. So I'm curious, how many of you are here new to Vero Beach? Yes, and that's my son-in-law. Thank you. Oh, here we go. The lady that wanted juice, not to put her on the spot. Here we go. All right, so we have one newbie. Welcome to Vero Beach, Nick. Okay, so raise your hand if you've ever worked in agriculture, groves, cattle, nurseries, aquaculture, or any kind of food production. Okay, that's actually a pretty good number. Who has parents or grandparents who worked in agriculture? Louis, of course, did. And for those of us that didn't raise your hand, like myself, that's okay because we are advocates, we're customers, we're neighbors, and you need it to go around, right? Everybody needs to participate. So the last question I want to ask you is, what is the first word that comes to your mind when you hear me say agriculture in Indian River County in 2040? What comes to mind? Just yell it out. We're all big family. No one cares. Did someone say irrelevant? Irrelevant and what? No more cows?
Development.
Huh?
Food forest.
Food
Growing
forest.
naturally.
Okay. I asked my girlfriend last night, I said, what comes to mind? She goes, it's over. So we have every range, right? From maybe more of it, maybe less of it, but it's curious to see where it will all land. So what we'd like to do is we'll have roughly an hour or so of discussion with the help of our panel. And then we will have a Q&A, obviously from all of you. But obviously the goal is to try to make it as interactive as we can. And I will introduce everyone as we ask them a question. So, but I'm going to, ladies first, I'm going to start with Laura. Laura Moss is the commissioner here in Indian River County. She represents District 5. I think it's on. Try it.
Good evening.
Yes. There we go.
Excellent.
Yeah, so Laura is, as I mentioned, District 5 County Commissioner. She's now the Vice Chair of the County Commission. She sits at the point of where ideas about character and open space and infrastructure and economic growth turn into actual votes and policy on zoning, conservation, and long-term plans. So in terms of time, we'd like to give each of the panelists like roughly 3 minutes just to make some introductory comments, and then we'll keep rolling, hopefully. And Laura, I know you wanted to mention about what's happening, the Oslo Road intersection. So please.
First, I'll say agriculture is having a Mark Twain moment. And by that, I mean reports of my death are greatly exaggerated. Okay? It's not dying. In fact, I want to thank Andrea Lazzari. She's with the University of Florida IFAS. That's the agricultural extension. And she gave me a lot of numbers for tonight. But in a nutshell, since we have just a few minutes now, the number of farms, and this is specific to Indian River County, has actually increased. They track data, the USDA, Department of Agriculture, that's at the federal level, every 5 years. Okay, so between the latest numbers are from 2022. So between 2017 and 2022, the number of farms actually increased, but they got smaller. Okay, they're just smaller, but there are more farms than ever. So this, which indicates to me there's an interest. There's definitely a clear-cut interest. And even more interesting than the increase in the number, the revenues increased in that 5-year period. So 2022 that's the latest data I have, and the numbers from PAR indicate that the revenues also increased. So this, yes, citrus is struggling, and I'm sure Louis, will address that. But his family is celebrating its 75th anniversary. 75 years. 75 years. I mean, what a proud history, and his father just had a birthday. I mean, that's like, it's incredible. It's an incredible place. So we are well rooted, we are well grounded. We're not going away with any of this, whatever form it takes. Later, because I have to give you something to look forward to, I also have statistics on sex, age, and farming. But I'm going to save that for later because I don't want to run overtime. And I need to look forward to.
That could take the whole hour.
If there are any questions, just remember, Santa is watching. So, of course, we don't know how naughty he's been either. But being said, with Oslo Road, this is going to be your chance. Your chance to become involved is coming very soon. Because you all know, or most of you know, we're going to have that exit on 95, Oslo Road corridor. The county did a study, community outreach in different locations, 4 different locations around the county. And I loved it because now I have a little piece of paper that I can beat people over the head with. It's the power of one piece of paper because you know what it said? The most important thing around the county is to preserve farmland. That's my case.
Maybe, I have one more minute for you. So I'd like to know of all the stuff that comes to your desk regarding agriculture, like what are things that you look for when you try to weigh the pros and cons when somebody wants to develop agricultural land?
When we vote on things, it's quasi-judicial, which means it's not our opinion. We have to go by the regulations. But generally, and you can look at my voting record, I'm against it whenever I possibly can be. And even if it's a simple question like, are you sure there are no wetlands there? And they can never say with 100% certainty there are no wetlands. So if you look at it long enough and hard enough, you can vote against it. And I have, and will continue to do so.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to introduce you to Tony Cho. I told him I really want his hat. That is a really good hat. You may miss this tonight. I'm not sure. So this is Mr. Tony Cho. Tony is the co-founder of Cho Zen Center for Regenerative Living right here on the Sebastian River. It's an absolutely stunning place. I can highly recommend you visit. So the project integrates conservation, land, regeneration, and nature-based retreats. He's also the founder of Metro One and Future of Cities, and is recognized nationwide as a thought leader on cities, climate, and regenerative development. He played a key role in the transformation of Wynwood Art District. Many of you know and maybe love, turning the former industrial neighborhood into one of the best-known cultural districts nationwide. If you've never been to the Wynwood Art District, you have to check it out. It's in Miami, but it's absolutely stunning. And it's one of my favorite places in Miami. So nice to meet you that you actually pulled this off. So you're very interesting. You've developed and you also are trying to preserve. So there are 2 of you. Okay. All right. So Tony, so I think you operate a very, very rare space after having seen it up in Sebastian, right? And you have lots of native plants and amazing things. But please, can you tell us a little bit more about Cho Zen, its history, and for those of us here that are not this familiar with this jargon, tell us about permaculture and regenerative practices, and I heard you talk about earlier about agritourism.
Absolutely. No, that's a lot in 3 minutes. So.
Pick a topic and we'll roll back to you.
Well,
So
thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, it's an honor to be here with all of you and Commissioner Moss, and thanks for including me in this conversation. This is my hometown. I was born in Indian River Hospital before it was renamed in 1978. So I may be younger than some, but I'm older than others. And, I'm a second generation Indian River County resident here, born right here in Indian River County. I grew up at Kashi. My grandmother started in the 70s, and when they relocated from New York, and had always been around community. We had citrus on our property, which was amazing. We had horses at one time. and had always been connected to nature on the St. Sebastian River, and which about 20 years ago became the St. Sebastian River Preserve, which was what W Ranch. And so it's really interesting because I left to go to college in Northwestern in 96. And then I moved to Miami and I got into real estate and really started to focus on urban revitalization. But I saw what kind of unconscious development was doing to these underserved communities in Miami and really wanted to get involved in advocating for small businesses. So that was really kind of the beginning of my transformation as a real estate investor, broker, and then developer. And of course, when my grandmother got sick, I came back and we bought some land on the river, and I just fell in love with Indian River County and Sebastian and really just the wild places that were here. And my brother and some folks like Peter from Willer School had started a permaculture project where people were learning to do permaculture and regenerative farming, which is not the traditional monocropping, industrialized farming, but really using plants in a guild system where they work together and you basically re-enrich the soil, and you're really doing it in a different way where everything works together as a guild. And there was classes to learn about permaculture and regenerative farming. And it really became a really beautiful project that brought a lot of people together from all over. And so when we had the opportunity to buy this land and reimagine it after my grandmother had passed away, we wanted to build on that legacy of building community, focusing on agriculture, agro-tourism, bringing people in and reconnecting them with nature. And me and my late wife, who sadly passed away about 6 months ago, we're really passionate about the Florida Wildlife Corridor, and we helped co-produce that film, Path of the Panther. Who's seen Path of the Panther? Anybody seen it? If you haven't seen it, go see it. It's really amazing, and it's really showcasing the Florida panther as an emblem species that has helped to conserve millions of acreage. And I think that after agriculture, I think wild, natural places are equally as important. And somebody in the back talked about a food forest. We have 350 mature fruit trees. So we have a very biodiverse, very rich place for growing, and people don't realize that. So as a developer with one hat and a conservationist with the other hat, and as a part-time farmer as well that really believes in regenerative living, I really think that we have a unique opportunity to do development in a different way that incorporates agriculture and ecotourism in a way that can educate people. And why not use this as a strength? We are losing acreage, and we're going to lose millions of agricultural land over the next 20, 30, 40 years in Florida, as we're going to lose a lot of wild places. But why don't we leverage the demand and what we have, the assets that we have, to teach more people about new ways of farming, regenerative agriculture, and new methods of farming that they can incorporate in their backyard, in their community, agricultural neighborhoods, agri-hoods they call them. And that's what we're advocating, not only in cities, but also in rural areas that are de-emphasizing the automobile and really focusing on our strength and our asset, which is this beautiful wild Florida that we have with so much biodiversity, so much wildlife that we're losing, and we're really emphasizing development and cars over agriculture and wild places. So that's one of my missions, is how do you integrate the two? So Chosen Center for Regenerative Living is a bioregional hub that's aiming to educate people about these types of new ways of living, reconnecting them with nature, kind of eco-spirituality, if you want to call it that.
You know, my middle daughter is here. My oldest daughter said to me in the summer, she goes, "Mom, this is your year to go to Burning Man."
Great. Mark also wants to go to Burning Man.
Because I know your wife was honored at Burning Man. So she was a beautiful woman. So, but anyway, I did it. I'd like for you to meet Mr. Wesley Davis, although every time you pay your property taxes, I think your picture shows up. It's supposed to be on the gentleman. Is it on?
There it
There
is.
we go.
No, I just put values on properties.
Oh, okay. But I hate to say this, I associate you with my tax payment.
I'll take that.
Like Tony, Wesley is also, of course, it's okay to call you a local, right? Yes, absolutely. So he is, as you now know, our county property appraiser. And so obviously has a great idea of what's happening in the county in terms of pricing, where the land is and what's being developed, what's not. So he's a fourth generation member of a local family whose story runs from the plume hunting era, and I'd like to know what that is, and early frontier days here on the Treasure Coast, and to citrus dairy cattle and even tropical fish farming on land that is now Laurel Reserve. So we'd love to know a little bit more about your family story and about the land you've kind of, I guess, kind of helped shape history here. And but I'd love to get your take on from the perch of a property appraiser's viewpoint, what your thoughts are about agriculture and land, et cetera. So thank you for joining us.
Well, I'll start out, I guess, I have a hard time believing people want to know how we got here, but I'll start out with that. Started out, and none of this is written down, of course, but it goes back to the late 1800s. And basically according to what I've been told is my great grandfather, he had a route that he would travel. And that route, if you need to look at it geographically, that basically entailed, this is the headwaters to the St. Johns River. So on the west side of the 10-mile ridge, the 10-mile ridge is where Interstate 95 is now. So you go over that 10-mile ridge, that started the headwaters of the St. Johns River. And that river flows north. And it flows north because of Georgia. And being a Gator fan, Georgia sucks. So it flows north, all right? And then, so what my great grandfather would do is, he would, sorry about that. I'm wearing a coat because my wife told me I was going to be
I
on the side of the hill. So
Well,
I told her it wasn't told.
I went to UF and my husband went to FSU, so it was a grudge match every fall. And all my kids are Gators too, so I feel comfortable with your comments.
So what the travel pattern was, and it was one more of subsistence. It was not anything as far as being able to plan on it. It was whatever's in front of you. Is this loud enough?
Yeah.
It was whatever was in front of you. It was hunting and gathering is really what all it boiled down to. And from my great grandfather, what he did is he would start out. We'll start here. He would go across the 10-mile ridge, build a flats boat, and he would go up the St. Johns River, and he would hunt the hooping crane. And he would hunt them for plumes for ladies' hats, which back during those early days, it was something you could sell. And so he would hunt the plumes for ladies' hats, and he'd get on when he'd get to the mouth of the St. Johns River, he would get on at the time the FEC railroad went south, but it stopped in Titusville. So he'd get on the rail and go south, and that's where I understand that the terminus of that is where he'd be able to sell whatever he could hunt, trap, skin, furs, whatever it was. And then he would build another flats boat. And of course, at Titusville, that's where the lagoon started out. And he was able to go down the Mosquito Lagoon. And it was basically just staying alive at that point because there was abundant oysters and just being able to eat and keep going, hunting, trapping, feeding yourself as you went. Then he'd get back down here to the headwaters of the St. Johns River. And that was his trapping ground. And what stopped him from doing that was in 1895, there was a catastrophic freeze that moved the citrus belt from Jacksonville down to Orlando. And keep in mind, there was no canals back then. There was no drainage, per se, other than what Mother Nature provided. And so it's not like you had to literally walk from here all the way to the west side of 95, because in a rainy season, as soon as you got on the other side of 95, you were able to pull from there. And on this side, you were on the south prong of the Sebastian River. And so you were able to go from the Atlantic Ridge, which is where US 1 basically runs, over to, and you were all able to do it all by boat. So in 1895, there's a catastrophic freeze that moved the citrus belt down. But my great grandfather noticed that there's something that made it a little bit special, and that was some oak hammocks that had citrus trees on it at the time that survived the 1895 freeze. There were several things. One was because of the water that was around it. The other one is because it was well drained enough to where the oak trees do not grow in wet water. Live oaks don't, the roots can't take that. So he kind of settled in that area and planted some citrus trees. And basically, as time went on in the 1930s, my grandfather was able to buy some land from, I want to say it was from Barnett Bank, which is basically around in the area where at the time, Grace Brothers had just gotten finished. They were in the timbering business. And they're selling, once they timbered it, they were done with the land. So they started doing some row cropping and all that right where I live now. And then we grew in from that into the dairy business. And we had dairies that were on the corner of 510 and 512 right now. That's where the Publix is. You know, my grandfather had a saying that the farmer's last crop is shingles. But what happened in that is in that we had to sell that property. The reason for that is we had two taxable estates. My grandfather died in 1988. My dad died in 1990. And both of those were taxable estates. Trying to do that at a time when our citrus prices were falling, Uncle Sam didn't give a shit. And so we wound up having to sell some property to be able to hang on to it. But you know, fortunately, I'm able to live in the house that my grandfather built after he was in World War II, 1946, and about 40 acres. I'm able to take, and I was able to split 5 acres off for my daughter and my son-in-law. So now I got an 8-year-old grandson that whenever he runs out of ketchup, he can get on the four-wheeler, run down to the truck and get ketchup. Give the grandpa a hug and go back. So I wouldn't have it any other way. But we raised cattle. We were had dairy right there on the corner of 510 and 512. And we went through the brucellosis. I remember seeing the dairy the cow carcasses just stacked up there from where they had to be put down because of the brucellosis. I remember the stench. I can see it to this day. And then we eventually got regulated out of the dairy business there. Being on the south prong of the Sebastian River, the phosphates from the cow crap flowed into the Sebastian River. The EPA regulated us out. And then so we tried citrus after that. And then, of course, the one long after that, that's whenever we got out, sold that property. Not me, but the family did. And of course, in the family farm process, whenever you have one person in charge of it with the income and the acreage, the more that gets divided, the income's divided, the acreage is divided, then you get in-laws and outlaws and everything that happens in between. It makes it very difficult. And so I'm not crying the poor mouth about it. It is what it is. But I'm proud to be able to say now I've got some land that used to have the finest citrus in the world on it, Indian River citrus. But now it's got cattle on it. We have a calf operation where all we do is raise calves. And we take those calves, once they're raised, we take those to the livestock market, we sell them, and they go from there out to the Midwest. And the reason for that is it's cheaper to bring the cattle to the corn than it is the corn to the cattle. And that's why you have all those feedlots out west, because of the sheer volume of feed raising. So that's a little bit about me. I hope I covered some of what you want me to hear.
You're all saying auctioneer, right?
I tried to do
They say you save the best for last.
There you go.
There you go. This is Mr. Schacht. Is your family originally German? Because I'm German, that's Schacht, but you're Schacht. You got the red hair. Yeah, the O'Hares, they have perfected the fine art of producing redheads. Yes. So this is Louis Schacht, and I kind of think you're on the front line because of all of us here. You are farming, and you run a market. That's where we bought the orange juice earlier to raffle off. So Louis is a third-generation citrus grower and owner of Schacht Groves, a working grove and farm market that has been part of Indian River's citrus stories since the mid-20th century. That sound about right? Schacht Groves has navigated disease pressure, shifting markets, and the sharp decline in Florida citrus production in recent years, much to West's comment, and remains both a grove and popular community gathering place. Sounds like your place? Okay. So I'd love, give us a little bit idea about the history of your family, the role you have in our community, and since you are in it, in the midst of it, how do you see this moving forward? And we talked about timeline between now and 2040. So how do you see things as we move into the future? And thank you for being here tonight.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you all being here. I see a lot of familiar faces.
You got almost.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right.
And there's some secret about not holding your finger over that bottom piece.
Wow.
Yeah. I just thought I'd mention that.
I see a lot of familiar faces here tonight and appreciate being a part of this group. So thank you. So my family started in Vero Beach. I mean, I feel like everybody's family, how you get to Vero Beach is kind of quirky and weird a lot of times, and ours is no different. My grandfather, Henry Schacht, was living in North Carolina. He was a traveling salesman, a traveling auto parts salesman. And he called on a Ford dealership in Midland, North Carolina, which is a couple of crossroads. Not anymore, but it was. And got to know a family by the name of Beatty. And my father in 1950 was playing baseball for the UNC Tar Heels and was at a road game at Rollins College in Orlando. And my father was pitching, and my grandfather came down to see his son pitch and came down to Vero Beach to see the Beatties and visit them. And he bought 50 acres on that same trip. So 8 years later, the whole family was in Vero Beach, and we were apparently farmers at that point. So I came along a little while after that, so all I knew was farming. I grew up in Vero Beach in the 80s and 90s, kind of the peak of production of grapefruit in this town. And I tell everybody that in those days, grapefruit was highly sought after, especially in the country of Japan, to the point where everybody's information on the back of your business card was written out in Japanese. They were willing to pay much, much more for a good grapefruit than all of us. So we started in citrus the way that a lot of people did back in the day. We simply grew it, and we had somebody else pick it, we had somebody else pack it, and we had somebody else sell it. Over time, we grew, but we realized that we needed to, potentially sell that product on our own name because we were not getting the full reap of the crop, so to speak. In 1970, my dad took notice of what Steve Hale had done at Hale Groves, and I was like, wow, he's selling his fruit for a little bit more money than what I sell my fruit for. If you take a grapefruit, which isn't worth a whole lot, you put it in a box, you put a bow around it, call it a gift. All of a sudden, you got a little bit of value there. So the Hales were really good at that. We were much, much smaller than their operation, but we finally learned how to put fruit in a box and call it a gift. So my dad started that in 1970. And to Wesley's point, 1990, that's a good kind of a good time. NAFTA came along, the price of citrus went through the floor. And in the 80s, like a lot of people, we thought that this was really great. Price of grapefruit was really high. We kept buying property. You borrow money to buy more property. You kept buying grove, and all of a sudden, oops. And so anyway, every family had their kind of way out of the crap. You were cussing, so why not? So, somehow we found our way through it. I remember my dad really going through it. He was 7 figures in debt and didn't know how to get out of it. And somehow you just kind of manage and you get out of it. Luckily, we didn't have to sell the farm to do it. But, when we get into talking about the future, the issue with a lot of small farms and big farms is that you're trying to make a living, and you can make a living farming, but the real generational money comes in the property. And that's the issue. I born and raised here, have a deep appreciation for the land. But when you see somebody sell their property and be able to put their feet up, it's hard to really argue with it. So anyway, put that aside. We'll keep that to the side. So my dad started this gift fruit shipping service when I got out of school in 2001. We started, we had a little store there, but it was kind of a joke when a customer would show up. We had a little gas station, ding ding, if somebody showed up, we're like, oh God, there's a customer. Literally, it was an event. It was like, oh my God, thank you for coming. So over the last 25 years now, hard to say that, but 25 years, we've basically grown into more of a local farm market, and we've started with juicing, which is shocking, I know, that have juice in your store. Now we have basically a local grocery store and teach a lot of farmers that grow stuff that I have no clue how to grow, which is great. And I will say this community, talking about more farms, is really blessed to have a lot of young, high quality produce growers. If you go to the Vero Beach Farmers Market, you'll see Pepper Trail Farm, you'll see Puello Farm, you'll see Bertie Hogan Produce. I'm forgetting Osceola Organics. There's several. So it's you go to St. Lucie County, you don't see that many, people doing that. This is a rare situation. We still have Peterson's Groves, we still have Shack Groves, we still have Countryside Citrus. You go around the state, you don't see that. Brevard doesn't have a single citrus place anymore. So this is a very special situation that we have, I think. Does that cover most things?
I think you did a great job. Thank you. I'm curious, how many of you have been to his market? That is awesome. That was a wave. What did I ask? I said, I asked, you missed it. I asked how many people here have visited his market. And it's a wave. Woo-hoo. That's awesome. So, yeah, and so are your kids in the business? Do you have kids?
I do.
Okay.
I mean, not formally, no.
Not formally,
They're
okay.
in school still, so
Oh, okay, all right. That's okay,
I think they might do other things, which is fine with me.
okay. No worries,
They've heard, there's been obviously a lot of negativity about citrus,
right?
but I think Laura brought it up earlier.
Yeah.
We have optimism. I think there's a lot of optimism in the community, in the citrus community. I feel like the industry has bottomed out and is going to turn the corner. I'm not just saying that to appease people. I really believe that.
I think that's great. So what I'd like to do is kind of do one more round of questions. And Laura, I know you're prepared, so I don't even need to ask you a question. And so I know there are a couple other things that were near and dear to your heart you wanted to touch on, but I did want to, I know the topic takes longer than the time we have, but give us just a couple minutes on, I know you're an advocate of small farms, i.e. farm to table. And I know it's a broad subject, but maybe give us a couple nuggets and then everything else you wanted to share with us in a few minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
It would be my pleasure. Thank you. Yes, please support the farmers market, as Louis was saying. We learned during COVID that it's so important that the supply chain can be interrupted at any time by we don't know what. So we're very fortunate to have small farms here, to have food grown here, and who knows what's coming next, genetically engineered and, all kinds of things are on the horizon. So I'm just thrilled that we have people who are interested in farming and want to do that. I need your help though. I need your help. I know from this outreach that I mentioned earlier that the community wants to preserve farmland. So do I. And by the way, one of the second highest was open spaces. So do I. How can you help? You can help. And there are two things actually coming up. I don't have the date yet, but when I do, I will give it to Irina. For those who don't know, we had a joint county commission and planning and zoning meeting a couple of months ago about planned development. And approximately 80% of the county operates under those regulations in terms of development. That when the developers come forward, they choose planned development. And we're getting a lot of things that people don't like. I don't like it. Cookie cutter. And we're tired of it. So that's what we're trying to address. The last meeting, it was in the evening. It started at 6 and it went until 10 p.m. 2 hours of county commission talking with the planning and zoning commission, which was fascinating. And then 2 hours of public comment, people coming forward. So, you'll have another, we're going to do it again because it's too much for just one meeting. So we decided we'd have another one in January, February. We didn't choose a date because there's a lot of coordination involved. But it will be in the evening. Requested that, so it's available to everyone. And I will let Irina know, or you can contact me anytime. My email is just my name, lmoss@indianriver.gov. And I have plenty of cards with me afterwards if you want to talk. But that's one thing you can do. The other thing I mentioned earlier is that Buffalo Road corridor. That will be coming up. There was a 1-year moratorium, maybe you heard, but there was a 1-year moratorium on rezoning. We voted on that last June. Okay, so that 1 year is going to be coming up, shortly. Time flies. Let's go. It was a 4-to-1 vote. I voted against it And that was to extend the urban service boundary to that area. So what does that mean? The urban service boundary invites development. And I thought, well, we don't know what we're going to do with that yet. So we don't know that we need to extend or an invitation to developers. Right now, it's zoned agricultural. So it's entirely fitting to be discussing it tonight. And that corridor runs from 58th Avenue to 98th Avenue. So yes, it runs all the way and it's miles on either side of that. So, and this is all, I'm not going to give you all the details. I have only a few minutes. I'm probably close to using them up anyway. But that's another way you can help. That's going to be coming up soon. So please, we meet twice a month. You can go to indianriver.gov and look at the agenda and see what's coming up or contact me anytime. I'm going to start formulating my own email list for people who are interested in this, any development issues. You're welcome to be a part of it. And I will let Irina know about this meeting that will be coming up on plan development. And just very briefly, sex and age having to do with farming, because I just wanting, I don't want that to get lost in the shuffle. I just thought this was really interesting. And again, these are USDA statistics. And so the change was between 2017 and 2022. And what surprised me was that there are more now, the biggest increase is in female farmers, not male. So male farmers, male farmers, I give you the numbers briefly, male farmers increased by 14% and female farmers increased by 20%. Now remember, they'll do it again, 5 years, 22, so it's a 27. You have time to be in the statistic for 27. So you didn't miss it. And then by age, under 30, there were three groups, under 35, 35 to 64, and 65 and over. And this also was surprising because the biggest increases were at under 35 and over 65. So you can be in that one too. There's the time for 2027, you can make it. And middle age was actually decreased. Who knows?
Very interesting.
Thank you
Thank you
very
so much. Before I ask Tony to make a few comments, real quick, does anybody have a question for Laura of the items she just mentioned? And we will open up for Q&A when we're done chatting with Tony, Wes, and Louis one more time. Yes, sir.
Yeah, my curiosity, did you get the definition of what a farm is, and what size, or the
This is,
parameters for a farm?
Yes. USDA, the statistics I was given, that was, as I mentioned earlier, through Andrea Lazari. And they consider, it was agriculture, actually, was a term that was used. And they consider that to encompass both crops and cattle. And as Wesley pointed out, in fact, Wesley's he's a great example. They went from crops to cattle by USDA definition. And the percentages, cattle was increasing. Cattle was about approximately 3/4 of the number. And then crops or vegetables, fruits, etc., was about 1/4.
Well, I guess what I meant was by what? Value of the farm, or was it the size of the farm, or?
I have all those numbers and I'd be happy to give them to you afterwards, but I think it would bog down right now. Yeah.
Because
I have
what you
them.
said is very interesting. So
Yeah,
that's
I'm
great news to
surprising.
hear. It's great
Okay.
news to hear.
And by the way, aren't you Wesley Davis's high school agriculture teacher?
Yeah.
Not a small town. We cannot lose this.
That's
And what is this gentleman?
That's awesome.
Patrick Heiser.
Oh, that's amazing.
Thank you so much, and I will report to you, teacher. Don't worry.
Well, you did a good job.
I
You
was a
graduated. Tony, you said,
There was somebody in the back.
yeah, but you
With-
know
with a
what, we'll
question.
come back
Okay.
to, the hard thing about moderating is this thing called time management, or as Irina calls it, air traffic control. And it's really hard to politely tell people, your time's up. But we will, I wanted to have like one question after each comment, and then when we're done, we'll open it up for Q&A for all of you, for all the panelists. So I'm gonna learn this air traffic control thing before I'm done with this.
You're doing great.
Thank you. Tony, from your perspective as a regenerative practitioner, how do you see the value of land changing here in Indian River County, either ecologically, economically, culturally? And tell us a little bit about what you think the opportunities may be for Agritourism.
Agritourism.
Thank you. Tough to pronounce. Thank you.
Well, I want to go back to something Mr. Davis said because I think it's very relevant. He was talking about your great grandfather,
Yes.
your great grandfather, and doing his route, and how we sit in a very important watershed here in Indian River County and Orange County because we're at the headwaters to the St. Johns River, which you aptly pointed out that flows to Jacksonville, where I have another project like the Wynwood Arts District. And we're also at the headwaters to the Everglades, which is just south of Orlando, which basically provides water for 11 million Floridians. And so if we pave over that watershed, we're going to have some serious problems. And so we have one of the most precious assets here that we are not even aware of as a bioregion that people don't even realize. So conservation becomes that much more important. We talk about the golden goose and you talk about these small farms. I think there's a huge opportunity in agritourism and education around agriculture. You just mentioned that there's no farms in Brevard County and none in St. Lucie County. Well, we've got something that's very unique and very special. And you do have younger people moving up from urban areas like Miami, Orlando, that want to homestead. They want to grow their own food. They want to raise their own animals, but they need to make an income. So in Indian River County, we have residential ag zoning, for instance, which is 1 unit per 5 acres. And we talk about the financial pressure. Well, you know, if you can't make money and sustain a small farm, which it's very difficult to do on selling produce or selling what you're growing there, it has to be through other methodologies, i.e. tourism, has to be hospitality component. And we ourselves have experienced a lot of challenge as a retreat center, as a hospitality area that's focused on agritourism. We have to evolve our thinking around zoning that actually properly incentivizes what we want, because the current zoning code and the current pressure doesn't allow for what the actual vision is. And I think the vision is to keep Indian River County small, have that hometown feel, keep agriculture alive, preserve our wild places, protect the wildlife, the manatee. I had a dead manatee on the shore of my property for the first time in 47 years, 2 years ago. And it was a horrendous sight to witness. I used to swim in the St. Sebastian River and it was clear all the way through. So I've witnessed the changes that have happened firsthand. I used to go to Hales all the time and grab my orange juice on the way to Wabasso Beach all the time. And so you see the changes. And I think our generation and the next generation, you know, and it's very apparent, women are definitely, when you look at our demographics of who volunteer, many more young women and older women are coming to volunteer than middle-aged men, and you're seeing the demographic changes. And I think that that's really exciting because you are seeing an interest in people that want to grow their own food. They want to go and support local farmers. And I think having places like your place is really important where you can be an aggregator and you can be a point of sale for all these farmers. So I think why not incentivize through appropriate land use people to be able to make money for being small farmers by allowing them to do hospitality, allowing them to host people, allowing them to educate them on permaculture, other types of interesting things that they want to learn about so they can become more resilient. And I think that's what people want, to learn to be more resilient. We saw what happened during the pandemic when we couldn't get things from China and other places. We want to be more independent. We want to be more self-sufficient and we want to be more resilient. And that's what it means to create a circular system where we're supporting our local businesses, our local farmers, our local artisans. And that's why we launched our Chosen Artisan Market, which you guys are all welcome to come to. We had 700 people there. It's a free event for the community. We have musicians. We had Sarah Lee Guthrie perform there last month. And we support small businesses, artisans and makers and farmers. And we need to do more of that because that's what creates that charm and supports the businesses at the same time. And it's creating a culture, right? It's creating a culture that's supporting agriculture, but in a new, more contemporary, modernized way that appeals to the younger generation because people want to be out in nature. They don't know how. So I think we need to encourage zoning. And, you know, we've talked about this before with the commissioners and others that really incentivize the type of development we want, not these quarter acre lots, one next to the other, together that we're chopping down all the trees, the oak trees that have taken over 100 years to grow, and we're allowing that to happen. It's just silly. It's insane. And we're promoting it. We think that that's the American dream, but it's really the American nightmare.
We have one question for Tony. Yes, ma'am.
It's a question comment.
Yeah.
There's a piece of property that's on 1.5 acres approximately. They're coming in for 9 homes on 1.5 acres. We have 9 owls that live on that property because it backs up to me. And it makes me mad that nobody cares about the gopher turtles or the owls or any of the wild birds. They just don't think about it. And it's coming before the city to be approved. 9 homes are gonna put on 1.5 acres.
It's insane. I feel your pain. You know, we have probably 20 plus gopher tortoises that are on our site, and we actually are entitled for more than we want to develop. But there is this tension between economic development and conservation and agriculture. And it's not an easy balance to strike, but there just needs to be best practices and guidelines, and there needs to be conversations. And everybody has their interest. Everybody's trying to, make a living and survive and take care of their families. And you don't want to fault anybody for that, but we need to provide the right incentives, have to be in line with we've had unbelievable challenges from zoning and land use standpoint, and we're doing exactly what I think the county should want and should promote. It's very low density. We have 3 miles of trails. We have, all forested areas, and then we're on the St. Sebastian River, and still it's challenging to get uses allowed and things permitted, but then you can get 9 homes approved on 1.5 acres. So
Everybody could just mirror you for all the rest of the development.
But I can't continue to do what I'm doing without incentives. I can't, we have a senior care facility that we lose money every single year without incentives. So there's, and there are seniors living in trailers and living in their cars or living in parks that we're taking care of, but there's not enough incentive. So again, it goes back to subsidizing and incentivizing the right behaviors and giving the right zoning to people who are doing stuff. And if I just may make a suggestion, if someone's going to do a large development, I think there should be a certain segment of that goes into conservation and that goes into agriculture so they can mitigate the negative impact that they're going to have with increased cars, increased traffic, but we have positive impact. And then, make sure that they're appropriately taxed for the impact that they're going to have so that we can mitigate, have more public transportation, trails, bike trails, and the infrastructure so we can keep this area wild and we can keep it, a small town that really attracted all of us and our families here so many generations ago.
Thank you so much. Wes, I saw you nodding your head along as he was talking, and so I feel like you're ready. I feel like you asked a question.
And the
Go.
problem, but outside, I'm going to walk out of here tonight, and I said I should have said, because even in the first part of it, there's things I should have said.
Okay, go.
But, I just really want to talk a little bit about the future of where I see things going. There's several things that concern me. One of them, and just like you mentioned, Mr. Heiser, raise your hand again. He was my agricultural high school teacher, FFA. And we don't have one of those in the county right now. And they're talking about increase in student numbers. I know if they would create an FFA program, there's a demand for it. And what people don't understand about these vocational student organizations, which Future Farmers of America was or is, it basically, that's where I learned my parliamentary procedure that I use today. My public speaking, I don't like to write anything down. I'm extemporaneous public speaking. That's what I did. That's what he trained me to do. We won contests together throughout the state. And whenever we had soils contest, learning about soil series and everything about that. Whenever I got to the University of Florida taking the class of soils, it was all review. I had that while I was a junior in high school. And I could take that onto the citrus contest, the generic judging, and it all builds leadership. It builds character. It builds being an advocate for agriculture. And I'd highly encourage, I'd love to see the FFA program get opened back up to speak a little bit about the future. Agritourism. Agritourism is a way for the farmer to make additional income without having to count totally on the crop.
Right.
There's problems with that because there's a Right to Farm Act. The Right to Farm Act means if you move to next to an agricultural zone piece of property, they can put a pig pen right next to your window because you moved to the agricultural piece of property. Then, in addition to that, with the agricultural tourism, they could also have a wedding venue. And the wedding venue can last until 10 o'clock at night. So it's not this panacea. And so and I'll bring this kind of home to you a little bit. My brother, he made his money in the septic business, Brian Davis Septic. And he married a Thai. It's his third wife, but he married a Thai lady. And they opened a Thai restaurant. And it's called My Thai Bistro right there in my Maryland project. Everybody's saying, yes. But they also now, on the land that I actually grew up on, because my mom and dad got a divorce, it's where my mom was. It's on the corner, near the corner of 510 and 512, behind the Publix there. And that's a 4-acre parcel of property that there is agricultural use, it's agricultural zoned, and he opened up a USDA certified organic operation. Trying to think, okay, you can't make it trying to be, if you think that as a small farmer that you're going to be able to raise okra, pickles, or cucumbers and squash cheaper than somebody could do it by the thousands of acres, you're kidding yourself. So he tried to specialize a little bit, which is what you kind of heard everybody talk about, trying to get this little special niche. So he did organic. That didn't work out as well. So now he's gone into the agritourism side of it, where they opened up the Farm and Flame. It's a agritourism operation where I won't even go into it, but the long and short of this piece of property, guys, is landlocked. It has physical access, but it has legal access. And it won't have legal access until they work out the development with the strip plaza out to the other side of it. We've got several pieces of family property. We didn't worry about access. As long as we get a tractor back there or a mule back there to be able to work land, we didn't need 50 foot of frontage on 510. But this, the aspects of this agritourism, in my opinion, is giving people like yourself the opportunity to come out and see something that you can't see anywhere else and to enjoy the experience, at the same time allowing the farmer to make the additional income to where he can offset the loss or increase the revenue of the agriculture operation. And there are rubs with it. It's not perfect. But one thing you got to have to be eligible for the agritourism part of it is you have to be a bona fide agricultural operation. What does that mean? That's my office. That's me. What is bona fide agriculture? It doesn't mean you're making money. Bona fide agriculture is it legitimate? 2 hogs, a pig, and a cow on 5 acres is not bona fide agriculture necessarily. But I can tell you how 1 animal on 5 acres for 3 months out of the year is bona fide ag.
Right.
And let's take it for this. Just to see you have a bull. I've got 40 acres and I've got a bull on my 40 acres. And my bull does what a bull's supposed to do, making calves, or doing his part of the calf making process. And then whenever the calves start dropping, in theory, those cows they're open, and that means they can be bred within 28 days. The farmer likes to pull that bull off of there and make it to where you have a uniform calf crop, to where when you castrate them, when you worm them, when you tag them, when you do the things you do to produce beef, you've got a uniform calf crop, all the same size to take to the market. I need to put that bull for 3 months out of the year, put him on a 5-acre piece. And that, a 5-acre parcel for 3 months out of the year with 1 animal on it, is bona fide ag. So there's a lot of judgment in there. Now there's other small that as far as that try to diversify and do other things. But in my office, it is a judgment call. I have one guy that does it all. And he gives the ag classification, and that goes into the financial incentives that you were talking about. The agriculture classification is granted and reduces the value of the property that they pay taxes on. Because nothing in any River County without this ag classification makes sense to farm. When you have property that you could sell for $60,000 an acre, $300,000 for 5 acres, or $350,000, nothing makes sense. And believe you me, I know exactly what Mr. Shack was talking about whenever he talked about the value of the property. You cannot pay your light bill with sentimental value. I'm trying. There's more I can go on, but I'll sit down with you.
We'll just have one for just with you, and let's talk with Liz. We have one question for Wesley, then obviously I want to go with Lewis, and then we'll open up a Q&A for everybody. Yes, ma'am.
I graduated with Wesleyan Angels.
Class of '88, Vero Beach High School.
That's awesome.
My family came here pre-railroad days. My career has been in public health. We cannot keep conserving land to save wildlife while the humans are getting cancer and on kidney dialysis. It makes no sense. Back when Wesley and I grew up here, the ditches and canals served for the whole community. Now that's under conservation, or that county owned, where we can't go back there and get our snook or our oysters or whatever. We have to put the human aspect back into it. Also, I grew up on the corner of 69th Street and 66th Avenue, where my family still is. We don't need senior living and affordable housing. We all need to be on the same land, our families, to take care of one another. I was born in 1970, and this can still happen. We got to put all this legal bull crap somehow and create the link, how we grew up here and how we are generationally born here. So I appreciate I'm so like in awe with you guys today, and I'm so glad that y'all care about this, because we have got to be very serious about who we are as our God-given rights. We answer to God before anybody. If you're putting poisons on this land, you are not honoring God. It's that simple. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you. It's hard to segue from God to Lewis, but let's do it. Let's have one hell of a segue. Oh, we got Santa Claus here too. Okay, hi. What's on your shirt? Santa. Vero Beach Christmas Parade. Rotary.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock, Christmas Parade.
6 o'clock.
Yes, sir. Christmas Parade, Saturday, 6 o'clock. That used to be a go-to when the kids were little, so I haven't been in a while, forgive me. I'm gonna go back. Louis, since you're one of the younger people here, and you said your kids may or may not go into quote unquote the family business. So are you gonna try to perpetuate this even if your family doesn't wanna go into it? Or do you see it, maybe selling it might be a personal question? Or are you going to explore, the University of Florida is doing a lot of work here in Indian River County with very progressive technology, i.e. AI, to try to enhance the farming community long-term. And I was wondering what your thoughts are on that.
I can't speak to the AI too much, but I can speak to, if any economists came to my farm and saw the land value and saw what we were doing, they would quickly say, you should sell this and get the hell out of here. And that would have been the case for the last 25 years. But so the reason that we're doing it and the reason I continue to do it is because I enjoy it and my family's there. My folks still live on the property, and there's a value that goes beyond money there. But so a little bit of good news. We're hearing some things that are less than ideal, I guess. But I look at the county as I-95 to the ocean, I-95 to Blue Cypress, and then the Blue Cypress area. And to me, the concern is between I-95 and Blue Cypress. East of I-95 is largely carved up. You have a lot of ranchettes. The price of the property is going to dictate how that goes. The agricultural belt, I-95 out towards the conservation area is really the big question mark. Fellsmere has already done what they've done. If you don't know what they've done, don't worry about it. But we farm east of I-95 and we farm in the St. John's Improvement District on 154th Avenue. That's where the question mark in this county remains, is that area. The development is going to occur east of I-95. It's a matter of how it occurs. A 5-acre ranchette is not bona fide agriculture. And to our credit, the property appraiser's office is doing this county a great service, and Wesley does a great job. So we should all be very thankful to him. To have somebody that I expect my bill to go down. But to have somebody that really understands agriculture in the property appraiser's office is huge. I do agritourism. We have a UPIC. We do farm to table dinners. I have experienced a little bit of the red tape that goes along with trying to do such things. I won't call out anybody's name at the county building. It's definitely not any of these people.
How does the farm to table, how does that work, really?
You charge a high price for dinner and let people sit down and eat local food.
I can understand that, yes. And so sounds like that you could make money on that.
You can,
Okay.
if you know what you're doing. And I went to school with Carolina with Randy, so we don't know what we're doing too much, but, no, it's been good. It's gotten our name out a lot, but you try to use your property in different ways. We've had weddings on the property. We've done different things. If it's just sitting there, 365 days a year, not bringing in any cash, it doesn't take too long to say, we got to stop this.
Or even costing money.
It's the Italian formula.
So of all the things that you're doing, what do you think is going to be sustainable for you and your family moving forward?
I mean, the first kind of tenet of sustainability is profitability. So you got to follow, you have to be profitable if you're going to have a farm. And a good example in town, we've been able to stay in agricultural because we were small in citrus, because we were small to begin with. You look at a big packing house, all these packing houses have gone out because they were big. They needed a lot of volume to keep their machine running, and there simply wasn't enough fruit. It's, kind of basic economics there. A good example of somebody that's taken a citrus grove and turned it into something different and profitable, but still ag, is Bertie Hogan. If you've heard of Bertie Hogan Produce here in town, and grass-fed beef. Britton and I have been friends for a long time, and her father Doyle. It's a really great group. Former citrus grove, couple hundred acres. Britton was working right down the street at Merrill Lynch, managing people's money, had a great job, great future, and she, I think, looked at me and was like, wow, you're kind of making a living in agriculture. Got with her father, started transitioning the grove into grass-fed beef and high-quality produce. And the reason that Britton can still do it is because it's profitable. That's the reason that Britton continues to do it. And because Vero Beach supports Britton and pays $10 for lettuce, well, I don't know what it is. But it has to be, she has to charge that to make her worth her while. Otherwise, she'd be back at Merrill Lynch managing people's money.
There you go.
So, there is good news and there is good stories in Vero Beach about ag.
Well, thanks to families like yours. Yes. So I lots of hands going up. Let me come to you with the microphone because you have to speak into the microphone so the video picks up what you want to ask. This gentleman is Jeff Pickering, who is the CEO of Indian River Community Foundation. So thank you for all the stuff you do for the community.
Thanks, Carol. We published a community needs update recently, and for the first time in 10 years, area median income went up to roughly $72,000 a year. And that was driven primarily by people who work in the industries that Bearable and I do, finance, insurance, and thankfully Cleveland Clinic with medicine coming in. So farmers and farm laborers were not driving that median income up. I have 3 kids. We moved here from Bakersfield, California, where probably 15% of what's on your plate is coming from in the United States. And I've got one who had a 4.0, 1400 on his SAT, graduated from Vero Beach High School and couldn't get in to the UF Ag program. So he went all the way back to California and he's graduating in May with a degree in agricultural business. But his take on this is, Dad, there's so much opportunity out here for innovation and there's funds that will support somebody like me to be an entrepreneur, but to come back not owning a farm, not having access to land, I'm starting dead in the water. And I look at all of the acreage that's not developed as a lab environment. And I think about the people who might be able to fund innovation. And I wonder beyond just growing or preserving, or like Tony said, alternate uses of the land, do you see any possibility for ag tech or ag innovation here like this? Because we love it so much, but could we move in a direction where it could be a hub for something like ag tech or ag innovation?
I'll start there. First of all, right here in St. Lucie County, University of Florida has their Citrus Research Education Center. We've got the USDA horticultural facility down there. So from the tech side, yeah, it's there. And then I'll back up and say, let me tell you how much the requirements to get into the University of Florida have changed since 1990, whenever I got in. So it's the whole big difference. But with that said, there's been so much experimental things as far as the biodiesels, the shrimp, that were so well funded from people that had the credentials from Texas A&M and some of these other agricultural universities out in Fellsmere. They actually drilled a deep well to the point they were getting the salt water that was the temperature that they needed for it, even on colder nights, for it to be supposedly for the shrimp farms. That didn't work out. You talk about that area west of 95, east of the Blue Cypress Conservation Area. Right now, you've got Epic Missions, or Epic, not Missions, Epic Property. Yeah, they bought a lot. What happened there is about 4 years ago, you had a large hedge fund called IFC out of North Carolina. They went long in the land out there in the St. John's Improvement District. And for those of you who don't know where that is, basically it's west of 95 for all intents and purposes and south of State Road 60. And I'll just leave it at that. They went out there and they were going to grow corn. And what changed in that is the BT quality of the corn basically meant that it wouldn't rot. Then they could get the moisture, have moisture in it, which is another reason why they don't grow it here. They grow it out west because during the fall it gets dry, and that's whenever they harvest the corn, whenever it gets dry. So they started planting the corn. As a Florida guy, I knew it was destined to fail because they were more worried about the middle of the field than they were around the edges. They'd have been better off growing rice because by the time they could plant it in, which would be after the worried about a freeze or frost, the time to harvest it was June 1st. That's rainy season in South Florida. And I felt sorry for them, but whenever I saw the bolt go all the way around it, and they had this multi-million-dollar, I'm sorry, Commissioner, they had this multi-million-dollar irrigation system that could walk for a mile and a half to go all the way down from State Road 60 down to the Oslo Road. It was kind of like, well, anyhow, it didn't take long before they got out of here. Now another company's come in and bought some of this after they did an auction on it. And one of the factors out there that's a problem is the St. John's Improvement District they have about $150 per acre per year assessment that is non-ad valorem, has nothing to do with any ag classification or any value of the property. Look at it like it's a property owners association or condominium association. It's those dues they got to pay. So if you've got 100 acres, you're paying $15,000, you're paying right off the bat. And if you've got 1,000 acres, go ahead and multiply it. But that was all there when citrus was king. It was there because that water's low. And when they had a spot where they could pump that water out, push it somewhere, they have the reservoirs. And whenever it needed water, they could pump it back in and they graded the roads. And whenever your citrus was king and you're making $2,500, $3,000 an acre profit, that wasn't bad. Right now, you're not doing that. And I don't know very many, you can't really afford that just in a calf operation. You can't afford that kind of tax assessment or a non-ad valorem assessment. So there's problems with it, and I don't have the answer. I really don't. But that's why so many people are not necessarily looking into the innovation side of it, but going into the innovating side of it is getting people who can't experience the farm life to come out there and enjoy it, to be a part of this agritourism operation, and for the wedding venues, to go out there and do chosen. These things are growing in popularity, but there's more than just that. With the legislature. Every year, whenever you have a municipality try to hit the farmer with another obstacle, they go up there and they change the law again. Keep in mind, the former Senate president was an egg farmer from Shirley called Bolton Simpson. Now he's the Commissioner of Agriculture. He was the Senate president. And the agritourism laws, every time they tried to make it to where you had to pull a permit just to put up a pole barn, they said, nope, if you're ag zoned or ag classified, you don't have to. Then they started worrying about the farmer saying, okay, well, I'm going to get sued if I let somebody out here enjoy this. They said, okay, we're going to cap it. You put a sign that says, and how many of you have seen this on the agritourism when you walk into the farm? It says, you may die. Y'all know what I'm talking about? That's because that liability is capped by the state legislature at $150,000 if you die. They're letting you know this is a farm. This isn't Disneyland. And so everything's getting laid in place here to try to help these small farmers. It's the innovation that you're talking about, but the innovation, I don't necessarily see it being on the production side. I see it being in giving in the experience side, to where people want to come out there with their kids, their grandkids, themselves, and they don't mind paying for that expensive dinner, that $10 head of lettuce, because you can't get it anywhere else. And I'll tell you this, I was just up in Perry, Florida. I was telling, which is in the Panhandle. Okay, at Airbnb, visiting my wife's side of the family. We were in an oak hammock, and they had some citrus trees there. And I was showing Lewis, and there was not a blemish on these trees. But keep in mind, that's back well north of the citrus belt that was moved from 1895. I ain't going to get political about whether it's global warming or not, but we haven't had a cold snap in a long time. But we will. I mean, it's going to go back and forth. In 1970, I remember 77, I remember it snowing here. So that stuff changes. So if anybody don't make the climate change, well, it was hotter today than in the afternoon than it was in the morning. It changed. So leave it at that. But
Wes, I've got a couple more questions back here because I think you're my example of air traffic control. We, like I said, we'll have to have a Let's Talk Wes. This gentleman right here has a question for the panel. You don't have to if you don't want to. That's okay.
Because I'm not standing. My name's Bill Schroeder. I've been here 30 years. I was driving a tractor in Minnesota when I was 10 years old, so I appreciate all the farm talk. And I've watched my contemporaries grow up and most of them held on to their farms one way or another. Some just had other jobs, but they kept their land, and I think it worked out pretty well. I would have one comment here, and that is, I think what we need here are some people that will get together and form the vision that we want in 20 to 30 years of what we want. We're talking here in short-term problems and whatnot, and without really knowing what we want at the end. There's an old saying that if you don't know where you're going, any path will get you there. And I think having a vision where all of us could talk against and say, this is how we think we can get to our end point, and this is what we want this place to look like in 30 years. My general advice is, since we've been here, is slow down.
Thank you very much. Tony, did you want to have a comment?
Hello? Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's great advice. Slow down. I think that's a good advice on all levels for all aspects that we're doing. And you know, Florida, for better or worse, is benefiting from a lot of economic, there's a lot of movement coming to Florida. First the pandemic, then through the elections. It's a very favorable climate for business and for development. And there's a lot of benefits to us. A lot of other places are struggling in certain areas like real estate and brokerage. And, you know, I live in Miami part-time and the prices are insane. You know, they're New York and London prices, and it's not sustainable. You know, we talk about, you do need workforce housing. You do need affordable housing because it's just not affordable. Many of the people who come to Florida are only here seasonally. So then those homes sit vacant, those cars sit vacant, and it's really a wasteful system that just doesn't really have a lot of sensibility. So I think from a visioning standpoint, that's something that I've done a lot of, particularly in cities. And there is a comp plan that I've actually read, believe it or not, and it does share a lot of the things that we're talking around ecotourism and really keeping, things the way that we want to and supporting local and small businesses. And I think that there is a segment of the population that will pay $10 for lettuce because they want to support small independent businesses versus big commercial interests that are, you're sending your money when you go to Walmart, to Arkansas. You're sending your money outside of the county, outside of the state. And more with AI and the rapid development, advancement of technology, I think people are going to appreciate more things made by the human hand, creativity, art, and things that are not 3D printed, things that are not made with AI, but that are things that are made by humans and have that human touch. And I think that's one of the attractions of Indian River County. And to the gentleman before who was talking about opportunities for his son, I'm all about innovation. I've developed innovation districts in Miami. I'm doing one in Jacksonville. And we actually got an allocation from the state of Florida. DeSantis signed it and approved it, $350,000 for after school urban ag programs and innovation together. So they have to go together. And I was talking with a co-founder of Kiss the Ground, which is another film that you guys should watch on regenerative agriculture, that he's coming to Florida now because they are using technology and innovation to solve a lot of the pest problems that we have for citrus in particular. So I do believe that technology, when used appropriately, really can solve a lot of our problems. But you do first need to have the vision. You need to get people aligned towards a common vision. And I think that's something that you can help out with community engagement, having more meetings like this so people can share their vision. And with AI, you can input your vision and you can get a vision of what that looks like in 30 seconds. So we could do that after this class and send everybody in this room what a vision of Vero Beach and Indian River County looks like 30 years from now of how we want to envision it. And I know we don't want to see cookie cutter homes and subdivisions and traffic jams because I grew up on Roseland Road. It's a traffic jam now. 512 is a traffic jam. I don't like that because when I come from Miami and I leave a traffic jam, the last thing I want to do is come to Roseland Road and be in a traffic jam.
I'd love it if the four of you have a few minutes when we conclude to stick around for questions. Or maybe the audience will approach you because I'm running, I just saw Nick's phone at 7:00. And so I promised the theater that we're out by 7. So I'd like to take 2 more questions. This nice lady has been very patient and this lady, so I'm going to take these questions and then maybe you want to then take your question to them right up front. And I have to say, of the Let's Talk Bureaus we've done, it's the first time everybody has stayed till the very end. So that's to your credit. Because this is obviously a terrific topic, and I want to thank you, obviously, for your generous time.
Hi, my name is Desiree. I've been here 10 years, and I just wanted to ask about opportunity zones in the county and how they've affected farming.
Thank you.
I don't think that we, at the current time, and I think this had to do with the demise of, or the diminishment of citrus, but, that has not been a focus. But for the gentleman previously, I hope to bring back the Agriculture Advisory Committee. It already exists. I just looked it up today. It has not had a meeting since February of 2020. That was before I was elected to county commission. I was still on city council. So having noticed that, I think I'm going to talk about bringing that back. And that's another venue that people can participate, that we can, engage the community in that. It's nothing, it's unfortunately, it's not something you can change overnight, but you have to be careful and be engaged is the main thing. Like I said, with that meeting coming up on plan development, that's really important. And also with the Oslo road corridor, be engaged.
Go ahead, girl.
Oh, you have.
I have a comment.
Okay.
I want to very proudly introduce myself and my team because we are part of the One Sotheby's team, who's the corporate sponsor of the farmers market. And we're very proud to show up at that market every week and promote all the farmers. And every week we do a drawing at our little booth and we sponsor, we promote one vendor a week and you can come enter our drawing. We also recently did a vendor appreciation night at Shack Grove. So we were there. So just know that we also do our part and we'd love you to come see us at the market. We always have dog treats and water, and then a drawing representing one of the local vendors. So thank you. I just wanted to.
My name is Leslie. My question is around density. We've heard the city talk about opportunities for responsible increases in density in ways that are beautiful and comfortable. And all night tonight, I think that a lot of us agree. We all love agriculture. We all hate traffic. But yet people still need to live somewhere. And so I just would wonder, really, and this gentleman too, would wonder what your thoughts are on how to promote responsible increases in density in already developed areas and whether or not that's a solution to preserving agricultural areas.
Well, I would say, I mean, the city, you're joking about the city, and the city did have a referendum and voted it down.
Right.
So you have to go, and when we did outreach on other matters, and I'm talking about the county now, 2/3 of people want to live in a single family house. So that does not lend itself to density, single family homes. It just doesn't. So, maybe there'll be sections where you can do that. I'm not going to comment because, it brings more traffic. And that, by the way, is the number one complaint I get, is development and traffic. Those two things go hand in hand. I don't get complaints about agriculture. Nobody thinks there are too many cattle. You can just keep going, get those bulls out there and, get those bulls out there and keep bulling it or whatever it's called. All right.
Whatever they do. Is this where the sex and farming comes in?
Denson.
No, we'll never repeat it. It's a great way.
Question was really around
Density, the question was density, right?
yeah, it was really around men who work in these really higher density areas. And so here, as a community, we have a problem with increasing density in our developed areas. We just shy away from it. But
There's going to be an increase in density. More people are coming here.
Yeah.
So you have to decide what type of density you want, right?
Yeah.
Where do you want to concentrate this density? Our destiny is density because we're growing in population. Florida is very, very popular. And so how do you do it in a way that mitigates more traffic, the things that we don't want? Public transportation is one of them that can mitigate car use, and having dense zoning in urban areas. So downtown areas and having little nodes where people don't necessarily, but you're going to have a car if you live in downtown Vera and there's no bus or there's no transportation. So it's the same problem in Miami. You can't get from downtown Miami to Miami Beach. They can't figure out how to talk to each other.
But the
So
question was do you see increasing density in already developed areas as a solution for supporting the non-development of agricultural areas?
yes, it's more of a comprehensive, holistic plan. And we have to not only look at our region or our county, we have to work in a bi-regional way where we're looking at the vision of St. Lucie, Brevard. There's going to be a stop in Stewart on the Brightline. There was 4 million passengers last month on Brightline. That's a huge benefit to our state. How many other states have a high-speed train? I know that it's not ideal for Indian River County. We don't have a stop. But if you think of it in the macro benefit of the overall state, it's a huge benefit. I wish that Vero would get a stop one day in the future.
Right.
That would be a huge benefit, or at least for years.
And one of the things we love about Indian River County is actually urban sprawl.
Right.
Because 5 acre ranchettes is the epitome of urban sprawl. Because you are not providing services to a compact area. You're having to have bus stops for children. We see what happens with garbage collection in unincorporated Indian River County. But that's what we love. That's what sets us apart.
Right. So, but what I understand about this density is the smarter way to go because, to your point, transportation is less, et cetera, et cetera. And I think we kind of tried this density thing and called the referendum for downtown, and it was a bust.
Yeah.
Because as soon as people heard the word density, they recoiled. But it does make sense. When you drive downtown, all these single-story homes, they could have had a second story potentially, to Tony's point.
where more people could live, more right, a little closer quarters and transportation, et cetera. So that's the tug of war here between density, which is common sense almost, versus, like you said, what did you call it, the dream of
The urban sprawl.
the urban sprawl?
And it is, Vine River Ranch, yes, is the epitome of what the planners at the best universities and colleges tell you, that's not what you want.
Right.
You want the high rise, you want it all in one spot, you want it like, well, New York.
Yeah.
I mean, I just got back from Lake Placid. New York did the area around the Adirondacks.
Right.
And then it's hard to believe that, one of the largest cities in the world is, 100 miles from you.
Yeah,
You just
yeah.
couldn't realize, that's my first time being there, so forgive me.
Don't scare people. Our height limit is 50 feet. So I think the theater's getting the big hook out. We're most appreciative of your time. Thank you so much. If you come again, bring your ski jacket. It's always cold in here. And thank you for our wonderful panel. We appreciate your time.